Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, March 4th at 7 p.m. We're in a regular session tonight. Our first item of business is establishing the quorum. We have one council member who will be, we think, arriving shortly, and so all others are here. The next item is disposition of minutes for the regular session held on February 18th, 2019. If I could have a motion for approval of those minutes?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We now have communications, and I have three brief items, two of which are annual reports submitted to City Council, and copies have been shared both from the Athens Fire Department and the Athens Office of Code Enforcement. And I haven't had time to look at the Fire Department one. That was just in our boxes as we arrived tonight. But the Code Enforcement, I might note that they do have an all-electric vehicle fleet, and they have also moved their code inspections, the rental inspections, which were on an 18 to 24 month cycle, they were all accomplished within 1 year, and so that's very commendable. Also working with public stuff to get, it's an online program to get complaints resolved in a quicker fashion, and they've been able to handle more of them and have a 96% correction rate within 12 to 24 hours. So once again, very commendable. And that all the code officers are now working with iPads, and that allows them access to electronic documents. So pleased to have that report, and I'm sure the fire department report will also have valuable information for us. The one other item that City Council has received is a letter from the Finance Fund based in Columbus, Ohio, and they have informed us that they will be the general partner of a residential rental development that is to be located at Carpenter Hall. And that proposed development will be financed with a conventional first mortgage and a grant from the Ohio Department of Mental Health, federal home loan bank funds, and housing credit proceeds and HDL funds. So we have been formally advised of their involvement with that project. Are there communications from other council members? Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to alert everybody that the Athens City School District, the next meeting of the regular board meeting will be happening on 3/28. That is at 6:30 p.m. That is on a Thursday at the Athens High School Auditorium.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
And any other communications from council members or Law Director Eliason? And Mayor Patterson, we'll come back to Kathy so that you and Kathy and Tina can present. A little bit out of order, sorry, from the usual.
Thank you. I just have a couple items. I received two separate letters from Graduate Student Senate. The first one is reaching out to me, and I don't know if council received letters as well, but in opposition to House Bill 565, which is the heartbeat bill.
Yes.
So I did receive that, and then in receipt of that letter, and then also an open letter to the Department of Education regarding proposed changes to Title IX, that also from Graduate Student Senate. So I wanted to share that with council and anyone watching tonight. Also received a letter, this is something we do annually, which is going before the Athens County Tax Incentive Review Council. That will be this Friday, to which I'll be speaking about the use of funds within the within our tax incremental financing fund line for improvements on East State Street. And the last thing that I have to share with council tonight and anyone watching is a big congratulations to the 2018 Officer of the Year, which is Tucker Johnson for the Athens Police Department. He has done a stellar job as an officer, as have all of ours, but he's the one who rose to the top as Officer of the Year.
Okay, thank you. And yes, a correction that City Council members did receive a letter from Graduate Student Senate also on the House Bill 565 and the abolition of abortion. So thank you for that letter. Auditor Hecht.
I am here with my income tax administrator. Some of you know, probably most of you know who Tina Timberman is. Some of you may not. And she's going to give you an update on the lawsuit that we've been involved in for about a year. And so here she is.
Good evening. I emailed earlier this evening an update with more details. I just kind of wanted to give you a brief highlight tonight. If you have any questions on the document I sent out, you can definitely email me back and ask me any questions. As you all know, on November 16th, 2017, the City of Athens and about 170 other municipalities joined a lawsuit against the state of Ohio, and it was regards to House Bill 49, where the state of Ohio put in the budget bill the centralized collection of municipal net profit tax. There was a temporary injunction agreed to from December 21st to February 24th of 2018 between the municipalities and the state. In that time period, we had our first hearing in trial court, and we got our first ruling back from the judge on February 21st, 2018. The ruling went for the state's favor, and the ruling came back that the reason was the levying of the tax deals with the collection, and therefore the General Assembly has the authority to enact the state centralized collection provisions passed in the House Bill 49. On February 27, Frost Brown Todd, who is actually the lawyers in the case, filed the appeal and asked for an immediate stay. The stay was not granted, and they had their appeals hearing, verbal hearing on October 17th. The court rendered their decision on a 2-to-1 favor for the state on January 29, 2019. They ruled that the trial court was in error on their judgment because they issued the final judgment on the fact that on our preliminary injunction hearing. They did not wait and do the entire trial, giving this cities time for due process. However, since there was no prejudice and no grounds for them to overrule the trial court's ruling. After that, Frost Brown Todd filed on February 8th for a reconsideration of the ruling. Currently, right now, we're waiting for them to come back with the reconsideration of the appeal. That's about a 45-day process. After that, we're looking to petition the Supreme Court to hear the case. Next steps for us is, of course, to petition the Supreme Court to hear the case. That process could take anywhere from a year to a year and a half. The reason why we wanted to talk to you about the update at this time is because we've been in this process for approximately a year and a half at this time. The City of Athens has been one of the cities who has not passed ordinance language giving the state the permission to collect the tax. So therefore, we are not in compliance with Ohio Revised Code 718. At this time, what we need to decide is if we should go ahead, pass that ordinance language, and come into compliance with 718. I've thought long and hard about it, and in my opinion, it's time to pass that language. Even though I think we should pass it, I think we should pass it in protest. We do have a whereas statement where we can pass that in protest against the state and let them know, we're doing this against our will, but we feel like we have to come into compliance. The reason why I feel like we should pass the language at this time is going to the Supreme Court is going to be another year to year and a half before there's any decisions. And with that length of time, we'll be out of compliance with the Ohio Revised Code 718 for approximately 3 years. And I don't want to take any chances with any kind of messing up any kind of our income tax revenue distributions. If we decide to go forward with the ordinance changes, I would work with the law director on the changes. We've already been discussing some things in email and back and forth. once we come to what we feel the best language for our municipality, we would get that to you as soon as possible. There are new additional issues arising at the state. Just to give you a brief idea of what happened is the 1st of January, we met with a new tax commissioner. We created a working group. There's 4 tax administrators on that working group. I am one of them. And issues are already coming to the surface. The state is handling the estimated payments coming through from the businesses differently than municipalities would have ever handled them. Excuse me. They are applying the estimated payments and then moving them from municipality to municipality every quarter. So an example would be, first quarter they send money to Athens, second quarter they move it from Athens to Nelsonville. So they're moving the money from municipality to municipality. States caused problems doing that, and they've got 128 municipalities in a negative situation right now. And over 400 municipalities have got negative disbursements, including Athens. Last week, the state had to go to the controlling board and ask for $2 million to cover the negative situation and to start helping float the funds to be able to pay municipalities, because they have 128 accounts in the negative. It's going to start getting a lot worse when returns start coming in and they have to start paying out refunds and overpayments, credits. And we do believe there's going to be a lot of litigation starting to come through to make changes to the state's code. And there could possibly be more lawsuits down the road with the way they're handling the charges and moving the money and creating escrow accounts and holding money back. So there's actually a lot going on right now at the state. And last week I met with Chairman Schaefer from the House Ways and Means Committee, and he did suggest that we start a working group and start meeting on a monthly basis with the Department of Taxation and the High Department of the High Business Gateway, and start working on some of these problems, because as we continue to get these distributions and work together, more problems are arising every day. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, we want to thank you for your leadership and also keeping us up to date on this. And I'll see if council members have any questions, comments. Yes.
About the ordinance, are we not already complying with what the state wants of us?
Well, the state is doing what they want to do. No,
Right.
we never actually passed the ordinance to comply.
Right.
But we're doing it.
But they're doing it. They are doing it regardless. I mean, everyone is complying with it. I mean, yes, we're sending them the information they need,
Okay.
and we're accepting the payments and
All right.
everything like that. Our ordinance is just not in compliance. is
Right.
all.
But in
So-
terms of our actions,
Oh, absolutely. Not only are we complying, I actually tested the state's portal for the municipal portal and everything. I mean, I've been one of the key advocates with the state is getting the system up and running, and their testing and everything like that. So, I mean, yeah, we're definitely doing everything that needs done and stuff, but our code's just not in compliance is all.
Yes, Councilmember Grace.
I was just wondering if you could clarify what it means. It says over 400 municipalities received negative distributions. Can you clarify what that means?
Yes. Every month we receive from, now that there's a state centralized collection, every month we get a payment from the state. Since they're moving these estimated payments between municipalities, they're like taking, our payment was like $4 and something one month, but they're taking like $4 or $5 from us and moving it to another municipality. But these can be a lot larger. A lot of cities are getting them into thousands of dollars. Like they'll take $1,000 from us and give it to another municipality. They base their system on their sales tax system, and which has nothing to do with municipal tax. So they're trying to figure out a way to determine who should get the money. So every time someone makes a payment,
it's a shell game.
it's a good analogy, but every time someone makes a payment,
Where's the P?
they readjust all the payments. So like
So
when
sometimes they're taking money from Athens and sending it to, and do we have any means of knowing in advance what they're going to do?
absolutely not. They are giving us no records on that at all. And an example is I know as anyone who has ever paid like business taxes or anything like that, so for the IRS as an example, if you owe the IRS $1,000 a year, at the beginning of the year in April when your taxes are due, you tell them, I owe you $1,000. I'm going to pay you $250 a quarter. So April $250, June $250, October $250, December $250. So every time you file with the state, instead of just having that one declaration you make once a year, every time you file, they say that's a brand new declaration and they just move your money all over the place. So they're just changing it every quarter and they're just readjusting it. So like if you work in Athens and Nelsonville and Logan first quarter, but then you add Lancaster second quarter, and you say, hey, I worked in Lancaster this quarter. Well, instead of just adding Lancaster second quarter, they go back and adjust all the money for the whole year. So it's been really messed up and it's really hard to explain. It took us an hour to even get Representative Schaefer up to speed.
I really appreciate that explanation, because I'm like, well, does that mean they're
you
taking money
have-
away? And that was the only logical explanation for a negative. But
You have no idea. I mean, it just comes through on your distribution. And if you don't have enough money, then they actually will take you into the negative. And then you owe them money. And it gets a little scarier. They actually, in one of the IP meetings, they brought out language where they were stating that they wanted to propose language stating that if we went into the negative, we had 30 days to pay them back. Or if we didn't, they started taking it from our distributions plus interest. And we was just like, absolutely not. This is, no. You can't charge us interest if you're putting us in negative situations because you're moving money which shouldn't be moved.
Thank you. Any other, yes, Councilmember Boyd.
In that vein that you just addressed, as far as the effect on Athens, assuming that we have some idea of what our yearly income would be normally from the tax, are we going to be put in a position that we are not going to have that yearly income by the end of the year? Or is this just a problem for the transition from the 12 months?
Well, there's a lot of issues with this. First of all, the money is flowing 60 days late. So we're already in a 60-day lag. But the problem we found out in January during one of the conference calls, it might have been early February, they all run together anymore, but they're going to treat carryovers a lot different than we treat them. So typically a business, with a good business planner, businesses normally prepay a lot of their taxes and they carry the money, they roll it forward. So a business, if they have an extra $500 on their books, it's nothing for them just to carry that forward for their next estimated payments. That's good business planning. Well, the state is, right now, the way they plan on taking care of that now is if a business carries forward $500, they're going to say, oh, we don't know what municipality that goes to. They're going to roll that back to an escrow account for the taxpayers, and that's going to be a negative on us. So when returns start hitting, we could be hit with a lot of negatives from carryovers. So I don't know what kind of negative situation that will put us in. And that could put us into it could put every municipality into an overall negative.
Okay.
Can I add something to that, though, as far as Athens City revenue is these are business tax payments. Sorry, I must need to get in front of the microphone better. And our major source of income tax revenue is through employee withholdings. Mm-hmm. So we are seeing a loss in revenue. The state charges us for collecting our money for us before they send us money when they do. But as I said, our largest revenue comes from withholdings, which are not affected by this.
We approximately have about 150 businesses opted in right now. And we do over $1 million in business income.
Okay.
And we probably had about 50 new businesses this year opted.
Councilmember Fall.
I want to say thank you for like the huge amount of work that you've done on this and the leadership.
Thank you.
It must be very frustrating to have this. It's like we've spoken about this over and over, that it was just such a stupid idea, and it's only making everybody miserable, but the state is making money. So they don't care. Columbus doesn't care.
I don't even think they're making money at this point. I mean, like I said, they had to go get $2 million from the state. At this point, they're in the negative too.
Right.
What a shame.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate the update, and we hear your recommendation also that we should consider moving forward then with legislation so that we are in compliance, even though we can do it, as you say, with opposition, so we can note our opposition to it.
Yeah. Like I said, it just brings us in compliance with 718, and it's just going to be such a long process.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Can I add just a couple things?
Yes.
Regarding the tax update, we talked about this, and I think I talked about it a year or so ago with council. And part of the reason we didn't do it is maybe just a little rebellion, but mainly to see what happened with the lawsuit. Because in that, if we had won the lawsuit right off or something like that, we wouldn't have to be talking about it at all, or at least not to the extent. And as Tina said, she's been in a lot of meetings and they've found a lot of problems, and so they have changed a few things throughout the year. I think this talk of centralized collection started in 2011. Does that sound right? It's been at least 5 years that I've been going to meetings, and Tina too. So it's been a long process, so we are where we are. One other thing I wanted to add is that we are conferring with the law director and the mayor all the time about this information. We would never act on any of this or what we're doing without the approval of the mayor and law director, including the lawsuit, since the name of the lawsuit is City of Athens versus State of Ohio. So just so you know, and that's why we wanted to update council, because you should also be apprised of what's going on. But part of this past year has been waiting to see what happened with the lawsuit.
Thank you. Thanks. Mayor Patterson.
Just to be brief, I just want to remind council that when the tax administrator, Tina Timberman, was doing we were collecting locally, there was 100% oversight as well as review and audit of what was coming in. Now, as it's going up under centralized tax collection, it's random, and to challenge, a return as we're looking at it is next to impossible either, so we've had this conversation about home rule and home rule being stripped away, but even the oversight over the business tax that's being collected, we've lost. And I will share, that Ms. Timberman keeps me updated all the time on the things that are happening up at the State House and her interactions, and she's doing a great job, and she's well respected up at the State House. I've mentioned that to this group before, but a big thank you to Tina and Kathy both in the oversight. We'll be going up to the State House 27th of March, I believe, is when we're going up, and to talk to our representatives and to see if we can talk some sense into some people. The Mayor's Partnership for Progress will be going up on next week on the 14th, and this will be part of the dialogue to have with both our representative and our state senator.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the comments. All right, we have some ordinances tonight, one of them for third reading, that will be the approval, and then the second readings where we read the title through primarily unless we need to suspend, and then our items that we're introducing ordinances for first reading the first time. So ordinances for third reading is 1419, an ordinance amending ordinance 14218, staffing levels, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 01419.
Second.
It's a short ordinance, and just to refresh everybody's memory, let me read the pertinent parts. Whereas Assistant Director of Public Works Andrew Dothery has requested an extended military leave of absence, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio, Section 1, Ordinance 142-18, staffing levels are hereby amended to add a second position of Assistant Director of Public Works that will be temporary from March 4th through July 31st, 2019, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. The position will be non-exempt at an hourly rate of $29.01.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for approval of this ordinance. Any other comments or questions from council members or administration from the audience? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We now have ordinances for second reading. Ordinance 1519, an ordinance extending the pilot residential curbside compost project through June 30, 2019, introduced by Councilmember Butler. And I don't think we need to suspend on these. Ordinance 1619 is an ordinance closing a portion of Court Street between Union and Washington on Saturday, August 3rd, 2019, from 8 a.m. to midnight for Bounty on the Bricks fundraiser. And this is introduced by Councilmember Katsas. Ordinance 1719 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Chapter 11.04, vending, peddling, and soliciting, to allow vending in a designated area on August 3rd, 2019 during the Bounty on the Bricks fundraiser, introduced by Councilmember Katsas. Ordinance 1819 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 8418 to increase the appropriation and expenditure for construction and construction engineering services for the Richland Avenue pedestrian passageway project number 311 and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, at this time, I would like to table Ordinance 01819.
Second.
And the reason for this is this project went out to bid on February 21st, and it came in well above the 110% allowance for price of project.
Okay. So we have a motion to table this item, and we have a second for that. And I'm just debating, just doing a double check on my rules to see if we have allowances for debate on this. And I don't believe we can. Do we have any comments? There is the motion with debate is to lay something on the table. So Councilmember McGee.
This is just for a comment overall, and I've indicated my personal feeling on this, that this lag time between the time of tabling this and when it's brought up, and we'll have an opportunity to consider what expenses are reasonable, even if that's next year and I may not be around. It would be a perfect opportunity for the city to consider some alternative prospects for dealing with the problem, if there is a problem. So I would suggest, again, to the administration and to the city in general, that to use his time wisely, because it is it's an opportunity to avoid any injuries to pedestrians, as well as to figure out if there are alternative ways to decrease the traffic backlog. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, and any other comments or questions from the audience? Okay, so we have a motion and second for tabling Ordinance 1619. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And motion carries for tabling this item. Ordinance 1719 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code, Chapter 11.04, vending, peddling, and soliciting, to allow vending in a designated area on August 3rd, 2019, during the Bounty on the Bricks fundraiser.
You've already done that.
That one, I'm sorry. It's this one, I'm sorry. I put the tabling motion on the wrong ordinance. Thank you.
We're good.
All right, moving on to ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 1919 is an ordinance granting an enhanced access easement to allow utilities to property contiguous to Hope Drive. And this is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. We talked about this a few weeks ago. And it's when HAPCAP, the Athens, Perry County Action, I forget what CAP is. Thank you,
Community Action
programs.
Program.
And they are looking at possibility of expanding and opening a larger Head Start facility there. In order to do that, they need an easement across the property. So this is the process of giving that easement.
We have someone here tonight that can speak to this.
Great.
Great, yes. Thank you, and if you can give us your name and the group that you represent, please. Thank you.
I'm Christelle Mater, and I'm with HAPCAP Head Start. I actually spoke to the committee, I think, in the fall about this. I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I'm happy to answer any questions about it. Our plan is, if this is approved, then we'll take the next step forward to determine if the land is suitable for building. If it is, we'd like to proceed then with building a Head Start facility, which would allow us to probably provide some full-day services and services not only to children from birth to age 5, but also their families.
Great. Any questions or comments? Okay. Yes, Mayor Patterson.
I just have a follow-up to this. I was in communications with the new director for OPWC, Linda Bailiff, about getting authorization for this enhanced easement, which we received a letter in reply granting that if this were to go through with the land acquisition for Head Start. So that was...
And I think we have a copy of that letter attached to the agenda. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Councilmember Grace.
I just wanted to say I'm happy to see you back, because that means that it's still moving forward.
It is moving forward. It's a slow process, but we're patient, and hopefully this will work out.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you for taking the time to be here tonight.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
The mayor.
Oh, Mayor Patterson.
I just have
Yes.
one last comment. I really want to thank the clerk of council for all the work that went into exploring, as well as the law director. I mean, we had to do some digging. This was an interesting issue.
Thank you. Ordinance 2019 is an ordinance authorizing a contract with the Washington County Commissioners and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by Councilmember Butler, and I think Councilmember Fall will be speaking to this tonight.
Thank you. We talked about this last week. It's a contract with the Washington County Commissioners for jail space, bed space, for female prisoners if we have no space at the one that we normally use. And it's $68 a day. So I don't think we use it very often, but it's a good MOU to have, contract to have. Thank you.
Okay. And the mayor had confirmed the previous rate for us. I think you provided the details this week. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Ordinance 2119 is an ordinance amending the 2019 appropriation ordinance and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. Allow me to read the pertinent section here. The 2019 appropriation ordinance 14018 is hereby amended as follows. Decreasing general fund code enforcement 101.351.5201 supplies by $1,000 and increasing general fund code enforcement 101.351.561 refunds by same amount and decreasing and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Ordinance 2219 is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $460,000 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying part of the costs of acquiring new parking meters and declaring an emergency, and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. The title of the ordinance, it gives all the pertinent information, though in our packet it's several pages long. This is a typical ordinance for the city to borrow monies from a in this case, a local financial institution. I don't know if we need to name it or not, but if the administration or auditor want to speak on this, other than the fact that I believe the reason that we're borrowing to buy the meters rather than to lease is because there's two reasons. I think one may be technically legal, and the other is we save money if we do it this way. Is that essentially correct?
That's correct.
Auditor Hecht, thank you.
We save a lot of money. To borrow through the company who has an outside bank that would loan us the money, we would be on a payment schedule. We have more flexibility with Hocking Valley Bank. If we don't quite have the money we want to pay the next year, we can pay more than the year after and things like that when we roll it over. But the interest rate would have been 12%. They are giving us 1.6% right now. All right.
Okay. Okay.
Well
Thanks.
said.
All right, thank you. Ordinance 2319 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 10218, authorizing the Service Safety Director to purchase smart parking meters, introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nicely, thank you. And I also want to thank Member Reisner and Auditor Hecht for doing some of the work up front here. This is basically just authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into the purchase agreement or into that loan agreement to purchase the meters up front instead of working with that secondary company. I do have a little bit of additional detail. Basically, over the course, if we had leased the lease-to-own process, which we're not going to take advantage of, through the company is called Real Lease, and they manage this lease program. Over the course of time, we would end up spending $55,000 more in interest on the meters, as opposed to staying local with Hocking Valley Bank and securing a loan up front. So the second concern, I can go into detail here because I have some notes. The lease would require payments to be deposited into an escrow account provided by yet another party, and this started to raise some legal concerns with the city. There was also the worry that this account could be sold to another provider and could change the payment structure. So it was, I believe, talking with Safety Service Director Andy Stone, he said that this type of scenario exists for cities that can't get a loan to purchase these meters. We can, so we have a better route to do this.
Great. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember McGee.
Last week I had raised the question of how many meters this would involve, and I don't believe I received an answer to that. So do you know offhand how many meters we would be purchasing?
526.
Okay.
It's a lot of parking spaces.
Thank you. Yeah, that is. Okay. And yes.
I'm
did you
sorry,
have another question?
I did have one follow-up question on that. Assuming that we purchase these meters and we're doing the routine that we've approved as far as raising the meter hours till 8 o'clock, how long will it take to pay off the purchase of the meters?
It's a great question. We were just talking about that earlier today, and we believe that with the data that we received on the pilot study and the revenue generated, that we believe that we can probably have this note paid down in 3 years, possibly 4, depending on how frugal we want to be in rolling this forward. But we're pretty confident that we can pay this off fairly quickly. When I say quickly, 3 to 4 years.
Thank you.
That would be being very aggressive on the 3-year end, where we're really kind of pushing it to pay, up as high as we possibly can. But again, I think that we'll be able to get this paid off, like I said, fairly quickly.
I do have a question myself. So when you lease something, a lot of times the maintenance and the upgrades are taken care of as part of the lease agreement. by purchasing them outright, do we change any of the conditions of maintenance or upgrades to the programming for them, or?
I believe that we're still going to use their service agreement. I can double check on that as well. That agreement, the cost was reasonable, we felt, with having a service agreement and basically the warranty on the meters themselves, but I can get that information for you.
Okay.
There is a service agreement with the software that's used to run this system. But for the meters themselves, I can get back to council on the maintenance agreement for the meter heads.
Thanks. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Yes. Yes, yes. Ms. Roman. Your name and your address, and if you represent a group. Thank you.
No, represent a group. I guess I was just curious as to how much this is actually going to cost, you know, with the maintenance charge, and how much will the city have to pay for maintenance and whatever else they have to pay.
In terms of maintenance, I do know that from what IPS has been telling us, that we currently have an individual who maintains our parking meters throughout the city, and for that individual to be trained on how to maintain these moving forward, you know, that basically won't change. But again, what I can get back to you and council with is the service.
So do the city of Athens has to pay that service, or is it going to be the people that own the meters?
Well, we'll own the meters with this.
So we're going to have to pay the maintenance fees, right? And the training of this gentleman or person that's going to be taking care of, maintaining them.
Yes.
You don't know how much that'll be, do you?
That I can find out and get you
Okay.
firm numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Councilmember McGee.
I just had one other question. I know you mentioned there are 500 meters, and I believe you had mentioned that they're going to be installed in the parking garage. Am I right on that?
These are not. These are not. And remember, McGee, the number I gave you, that was the total number of parking meters in the city, and that does include the parking garage.
Okay.
Yeah, so with that said, I will get you the number for just the ones on the street and just the ones that are going to be under this program. But we're not changing over to the IPS meters in the parking garage.
Okay, that's what I wondered. It seems like we do have kind of a problem with sometimes with the people pulling in and trying to park and having quarters, and I understand that. And I was hoping these meters would be helpful for that kind of situation, but apparently not.
No, but we are exploring some things. I think this has come up in the past with council, and that is, you know, renovations that we're hoping to bring forward for the parking garage, different renovations, but some of those being things like the change machine that's there in the parking garage and possibly relocating it. But we are exploring a level of upgrades to the parking garage to include lighting, interior painting, things of that nature. So that's completely separate. And as council knows, that's proprietary monies for the garage itself. So the meters that are there are for maintaining the parking garage. So that's something that we're exploring, like I said, for this summer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I will, remember, McGee, I will get you the numbers for the meters on the street. That's my fault. In totality, we have 526 meters in the city, but not all 526 will be these new IPS meters. Okay. I'll get you that.
President Nysen.
Yes. Councilmember Grace.
Thank you. Just on that, since we're talking about parking garage meters, that you can use the app currently to pay at those meters, correct? Right. Yeah, so Park Mobile is available if you don't have quarters or cash for the change machine. And also, the city does currently pay someone to maintain the current meters, so even though there will be some training required to switch over to new meters, it's not a significant additional expense because there is maintenance required for our existing meters as well, in terms of the in-town, in-person contact with the parking meters that's a current expense that we have for our existing meters.
Okay, thanks. All right. We'll move on to a one-reading resolution, 319. This is a resolution asserting our constitutionally protected right to self-government and home rule, introduced by all council members, and I believe Councilmember Fall.
Kind
Speak to
of
this.
ironic, our timing that we did. It's almost like we planned it. And as a lot of people who've seen other council meetings, that I'm always bringing up this idea of home rule and self-government. And as we could tell by what Tina was talking about earlier, the state, when they try to take things over, don't make a very good job of it. From being able to help people on their taxes to being able to have them pay us in a logical and orderly way, where something that we could do very. So we put together this ordinance, this resolution. Whereas Ohio cities have state constitutional protection of self-government to adopt and enforce within its corporate boundary local regulations that are not in conflict with the general laws of the state of Ohio. And whereas the state has been steadily eroding our community's home rule authority, and whereas our citizens are harmed by the erosion of our constitutional protected home rule that includes preemption of local control and regulations of fracking and injection wells, loss of income due to the centralized municipal business tax collection, state-regulated micro-wireless telecommunications within the city's public right-of-way, House Bill 625 and House Bill 210, proposing the prohibition of local legislation to limit single-use bags that significantly impact our local government, our local environment, and prohibition of local legislation on common sense gun regulation. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio. Section 1, Athens City Council respects this constitutionally protected right of self-governance and commends cities across the state for fighting to protect our rights of self-government. Section 2, Athens City Council requests that the state of Ohio roll back the usurpation of our right to local self-government. And Section 3, the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to deliver a copy of this resolution to Representative Jay Edwards, Senator Frank Hoagland, and Governor Mike DeWine. I move that we adopt this resolution.
Second.
Thank you. I would like to say that this is just a partial list of the sort of harmful regulation, rolling back of legislation, putting in of legislation that harms us. And they do it through money. When they don't give us our local government funds, we can't do things if we don't have money. They cut that. And then when they do really bonehead things and we have to take them to court, that's also money that we can't spend on other things that we know our citizens want and have told us over and over. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We have a motion and second for passing this resolution. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember McGee.
First, I'd like to say I support in general all the statements that you mentioned, though. The one thing that I would just add, and this is my concern overall, is that through the history of the growth of our country, we've basically had a situation where the state or the federal government, or before that the king, would always grab the main proceeds and then distribute the pennies, so to speak. In our current situation, it bothers me somewhat that we always seem so much more dependent upon the state for its largesse. We're asking for grants at one point in time. We're asking for approval for certain things. And I just want to emphasize that in my mind, I think home rule implies that we also have to be very cautious in how we spend our money, and also realize that we can't always rely on the state to be the one who's going to be giving us funds, because otherwise they control everything. So if we're standing up for ourselves, and if we're truly saying that this is a city that funds its own projects and funds its own resources and pays its way, then I think it's a two-way street, and I just would caution us on that. But I do heartily approve your resolution.
The local government fund, that is our money. You know, and it's the money that is collected through various taxes in our communities, and it was supposed to historically have always been passed back to the communities. And they have been taking that more and more, where our local government fund has been cut drastically and not replaced by anything. But that's money that should be ours because it's collected here. It was promised through various legislation by the state. And so it is a question of fighting for our money because it should stay here. And I agree with you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Any other comments or questions from administration or audience? Okay. We'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously, and the resolution is approved. Well, we now have announcements and other business. I know we will have committees next week, and if we don't have any notice so far of committees that need to meet, so you do need to get that information to our clerk of council within the next, 48 hours.
Finance and personnel.
You will have that, okay, as always.
Always.
Okay, well, that much we know. Good. We now have appointments to the Shade Tree Commission, and I believe Councilmember Katsas just will speak to that.
Yes, President Nicely, thank you. I wanted to first off thank Jeff Buckley. Jeff Buckley is leaving the Shade Tree Committee, so I would, or Shade Tree Commission, so I would like to thank him for his service. And at the same time, I believe he also recommended the appointment of this next person, and went through administration. James Dyer is the gentleman that is up for consideration. He is a professor of geography at Ohio University. His research focuses on North American forests, especially in the eastern United States. He currently serves on the University Ridge's Land Lab Committee and its Tree Advisory Committee, has been a resident since 1992 and lives in the 3rd Ward. So it sounds like it's a, he's got some good points here. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And is that the only one at this point? Because I see appointments, plural. There's also the reappointment of Nancy Walker, and we
okay, I
could
didn't
probably
see
take
that.
care of that at the same time.
Okay. Yep, I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Thank her for her service.
Yes, yeah, no, Nancy's great. So it's yes, I would love to reintroduce Nancy Walker to the commission. She always has some good comment and good thought on the subject.
Okay, so we have a motion for appointment of Mr. James Dyer to fill one term, and then reappointment of Nancy Walker. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second for approval of these appointments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, thank you. Are there any other announcements from council members or mayor? Okay. All right. We also have an opportunity now for citizens to speak on items not covered on the agenda tonight. And is there anybody in the audience that's wishing to speak? Yes. Ms. Roman. If you could give us your name and address again, just so we have it for the record. Or just tell us verbally. Just tell us verbally for the record.
Okay, this is going to be a stupid question. I know that. But I'm going to ask it anyway. Because I've been coming to meetings for a year. And I've heard all monies going back and forth. And my question is as I had to pay $10 more a month for my sewer bill. And then I see all this other money going back and forth, like for the compost, that's like $76,000. And when they talked about the lighting, and I think it was Andy Stone said he had $20,000 extra. So my question is, why doesn't that money first go to something that has to be paid, like whatever this additional sewer money is going to, rather than going to these other things and you have to raise the citizens sewer bill $10.
Okay. I'll comment, and then we could address specifically later, perhaps with the administration or with the auditor if you wanted to meet with her about it. But sometimes the funds that transfer are because they're proprietary funds. And so if there's money sitting in the parking revenue money that allows us to buy the parking meters, then then we can do that kind of thing. Likewise, water and sewer are proprietary funds, but meaning that we can shift within them sometimes to take care of expenses within those areas, but we can't shift. We couldn't shift parking meter money over to help pay for the sewer, so there wouldn't be a sewer rate increase. So that's a brief explanation. The mayor might have an additional comment, and then I'd say if we want to engage in further discussion, it would be after council meeting session is over.
I was just going to add that the garbage fund, and composting is under that. That too is also proprietary monies, and so we can't take money out of that fund and deploy it somewhere else in the city.
And what might be a really helpful document that we can share with you immediately is the budget, the overall budget that's attached to the ordinance when our budget is approved each year, because I think that's an excellent summary, because it gives, here's the general revenue funds that pays primarily for salary and fringe benefits, but then here are all the other proprietary funds and grant funds. It's a very useful tool. So, great. All right, well, thank you. And we could have a motion for adjourning.
So moved.
Okay, and a second? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned at 7:56. Thank you very much.